The morning sun shone through the tall windows of the Galactic Military Academy. The light hit the polished floors and made them sparkle like stars. In the main training hall, alien cadets from across the galaxy were getting ready for their final test. This was the day that would decide if they were good enough to become officers in the Galactic Fleet. Sojin Park stood near the weapon racks, her crystal skin catching the light and throwing rainbows on the walls. She was from the planet Valkyria, where her people were born with crystal bodies that could bend light. She was the best student in her class and everyone knew it. Her plasma rifle was clean and perfect, just like everything else about her. "I heard they are bringing a special teacher today," said Dongwu Li. He was from the Zenthari homeworld, and like all his people he had 4 arms. Each arm was strong and fast. He could use 4 weapons at once, something that amazed even his teachers. His quantum disruptors hung from special belts around his waist. "A human," said Kieran, a tall blue alien with 6 eyes. "An old human with an old weapon." The other cadets laughed. Humans were known for being tough, but their weapons were not the best. Everyone knew that human technology was far behind most other races. While other species had plasma guns and matter destroyers, humans still used simple laser weapons. Haiwan Choi sat quietly in the corner. She was the only human cadet in the class, and she always felt like she had to prove herself. The other students were not mean to her, but she could feel them watching her. She knew they thought humans were weak compared to their own people. The large doors of the training hall opened with a soft sound. Commander Nalthok walked in first. He was a Saurian, a race that looked like walking lizards. His green skin was covered in small scales, and his yellow eyes could see in the dark. He had been training soldiers for over 200 years. Behind him walked an old human man. He was not very tall, and his hair was gray and white. He walked with a small limp like his left leg hurt him. His face had many scars, and his hands looked rough from years of hard work. But what made all the cadets stare was the weapon on his side. It was a laser pistol, but not like any weapon they had seen before. It was big and clunky, with metal parts that looked old and worn. There were cooling vents on the sides that glowed red. The grip was cracked and wrapped with old military tape. It looked like something from a museum. "This is Taeho Kim," said Commander Nalthok. His voice did not sound excited. He served in the Human Marines for 40 years. He fought in the Outer Rim Wars and the Rebellion of the Seven Suns. Today he will teach you about combat history. The commander's words made it clear that he did not think this was important. The cadets looked at each other and tried not to laugh. Sojin whispered to the cadet next to her, "Why are they wasting our time with old human stories?" Taeho Kim did not seem to care about the whispers. He looked at each cadet with calm eyes. His gaze was steady and strong, like someone who had seen many battles and lived to tell about them. When his eyes met Haiwan's, she saw something there that made her sit up straight. "Your weapons are beautiful," Taeho said. His voice was quiet, but everyone could hear him clearly. "I have never seen such perfect machines. They can do things my old pistol never could." Dongwu raised one of his 4 hands. "Sir, why do you still carry such an old weapon? Surely the human military has better guns now." Taeho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew secrets that others did not. "They do have better weapons now. Much better. But I keep this one because it taught me things that new weapons cannot teach." He touched the old pistol with 1 finger. "This weapon has no computer to help me aim. It has no smart system to pick targets for me. When the battery runs low, it does not find more power by itself. It just stops working." "That sounds terrible," said Sojin. Her crystal body flashed bright blue, which meant she was confused. "Why would anyone want a weapon that makes fighting harder?" "Because," said Taeho, "when you have a weapon that can do everything for you, you forget how to do things for yourself. When you have a weapon that never fails, you never learn what to do when things go wrong." The cadets looked at their perfect weapons. Sojin's plasma rifle had targeting computers that could hit a target from 5 miles away. Dongwu's quantum disruptors could shoot through any armor and never needed new ammunition. All of their weapons were connected to their suits, showing them exactly where to aim and when to fire. Commander Nalthok checked his watch. "Well, this has been educational, but we need to start the combat test. Cadet Park, you will go first." "Wait," said Taeho. "I would like to take the test too." The room became very quiet. The cadets stared at the old human. His ancient laser pistol looked even more strange next to their shiny perfect weapons. "Sir," said Commander Nalthok. This test is designed for modern weapons and trained cadets. Your historical weapon might not be suitable. Taiho's smile became wider. I understand, but I have been in real battles with this old gun. I think it might be interesting to see how it does against your training course. So Jin's crystal body turned red, which meant she was getting angry. This is not fair to us. We have trained for years with proper weapons. We should not have to compete with... She looked at the old pistol. With museum pieces. You are right, said Taiho. It is not fair. My weapon is much older and simpler than yours. It cannot do half the things your weapons can do. If you beat me, it will be easy. And if you do not... He left the sentence hanging in the air. The challenge was clear. The old human with his broken-down laser pistol was asking to compete against the best cadets in the galaxy. It should have been funny. It should have been easy. But something in Taiho's eyes made the cadets feel nervous. There was a look there that none of their teachers had. It was the look of someone who had faced real death and real danger, not just training simulations. Commander Nalthok looked at the old human for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well, Marine Kim, you may take the test. But do not expect us to make it easier because of your equipment limitations. Taiho bowed slightly. I would not want it any other way, Commander. As the cadets prepared for their test, they kept looking at the old human and his strange weapon. They were sure they would beat him easily. After all, how could an ancient laser pistol compete with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy? But deep inside, some of them began to wonder. There was something about Taiho Kim that made them think this test might not be as easy as they thought. The combat simulation room was huge. The walls were made of special metal that could change shape and create any battlefield the computer wanted. The ceiling was so high that it looked like real sky. When the test started, the room would become a dangerous place full of enemies and traps. Commander Nalthok stood at the control panel. His scaled fingers moved over the buttons as he set up the test. The rules are simple, he said. You must destroy all targets while staying alive. Points are given for speed, accuracy, and style. The computer will make the test harder as you do better. So Jin stepped forward first. Her crystal body was bright with confidence. She held her plasma rifle like it was part of her own arm. I am ready, Commander. The room changed around her. The walls became the inside of a space station. Red lights flashed as alarms went off. Holographic enemies appeared. Some were robots, some were aliens, some were just shapes that moved and shot at her. So Jin moved like a dancer. Her crystal body bent light around her, making her hard to see. Her plasma rifle fired bright blue beams that cut through everything they touched. The targeting computer in her helmet showed her exactly where to aim. She never missed. The other cadets watched on a big screen. They could see Sojin's score going up. 100, 200, 350, 500. She moved from room to room, destroying everything in her path. Her weapon never got hot, never ran out of power, never failed to fire. Beautiful work, said Dongwu. She makes it look easy. When Sojin finished, her final score was 847 points. She came out of the simulation room with a big smile. Her crystal body was glowing bright white with pride. Not bad, Cadet Park, said Commander Nalthok. That is the highest score this month. Dongwu went next. With his 4 arms, he could use 4 quantum disruptors at the same time. The weapons were small and light, but they could shoot through any armor. He entered the simulation and immediately started firing in all directions. His fighting style was completely different from Sojin's. Where she was graceful, he was like a storm. His 4 weapons fired constantly, filling the air with deadly energy. The enemies could not hide from him because he could shoot in 4 directions at once. The cadets cheered as they watched his score climb. 200, 400, 650, 780. His weapons never overheated because each one had time to cool down, while the others fired. His targeting systems kept track of every enemy, making sure he never wasted a shot. When Dongwu finished, he had scored 823 points. He came out breathing hard but happy. 4 arms are definitely better than 2, he said with a laugh. 3 more cadets took the test. Each one had amazing weapons and scored very well. There was Kieran with his gravity hammer that could crush enemies from far away. There was Vex with her bioelectric rifle that could stun whole groups at once. There was Zane with his matter disruptor that could make enemies just disappear. All of their weapons were perfect. They had computers to help aim, systems to find targets, and power supplies that never ran out. The cadets had trained for years to use these weapons, and it showed. Their scores were all between 700 and 850 points. Finally, it was Taeho's turn. The old human walked slowly to the simulation room. His ancient laser pistol looked even more strange next to all the advanced weapons the cadets had used. The cooling vents on its sides glowed red. The cracked grip was wrapped with old tape. It made soft beeping sounds that meant it was checking its systems. "Are you sure about this, Marine Kim?" asked Commander Nalthok. "These simulations are designed for modern weapons. Your pistol might not be able to handle the advanced targets." Taeho checked his weapon carefully. He opened a small panel on the side and looked at some numbers that appeared. "She has about 60 shots left in her battery," he said. "That should be enough," Sojin laughed. 60 shots? My plasma rifle can fire for hours without stopping. My disruptors never run out of power, added Dongwu. Taeho nodded. "I know. Your weapons are much better than mine in every way. But 60 shots can do a lot of damage if you use them right." He walked into the simulation room. The door closed behind him with a soft sound. On the screen, the cadets could see him standing in the middle of the space station that Sojin had just fought through. He looked small and old compared to the young, strong aliens who had gone before him. The simulation started. Alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed. The first wave of enemies appeared. 3 combat robots with heavy armor and big guns. The cadets expected Taeho to start shooting right away like all of them had done. Instead, he did something strange. He stood very still and watched the robots. He seemed to be studying them, learning how they moved and where they aimed. "What is he doing?" asked Kieran. "Why is he not shooting?" One of the robots fired at Taeho. Instead of using a shield or hiding behind cover, the old human simply stepped to one side. The laser blast went past him and hit the wall. Then Taeho drew his weapon. The ancient laser pistol did not make the clean, quiet sounds of modern weapons. It made a loud, harsh noise like something breaking. A bright red beam shot out and hit the first robot in the center. The robot exploded. "Lucky shot," said Sojin. But then Taeho did something that made all the cadets stop talking. Instead of shooting the second robot directly, he aimed at the wall behind it. The red laser beam hit a shiny metal panel and bounced off, hitting the robot in the back where its armor was weaker. The third robot tried to hide behind a pillar. Taeho's laser could not go through the pillar like modern weapons could, so instead he shot at the ceiling above the robot. Pieces of metal fell down and crushed it. "How did he know to do that?" whispered Haya-1. Commander Nalthok leaned forward, his yellow eyes wide. "Experience," he said quietly. The simulation continued. More enemies appeared. Faster robots, flying drones, energy shields that could stop most weapons. Each time Taeho found a way to destroy them that none of the cadets had thought of. When drones flew too high for him to hit, he shot the lights out and fought in darkness. His old eyes were better in the dark than the robot's sensors. When energy shields blocked his path, he did not try to shoot through them like the cadets had done. Instead, he found the power cables that fed the shields and cut them with precise shots. When fast enemies tried to surround him, he used his laser to cut holes in walls and create new paths that confused them. His score kept climbing, 100, 300, 500, 700, but more important than the points was the way he fought. Every shot was planned. Every move had a purpose. He never wasted energy or ammunition. The cadets watched in growing amazement. This was not the kind of fighting they had learned in school. This was something else entirely, something older and more dangerous. "He is not just shooting targets," said Dongwu slowly. "He is thinking about every shot before he takes it." "Look at his ammunition counter," said Vex. "He has only used 20 shots, but he has destroyed twice as many enemies as I did." Taeho's score passed 800 points, then 850. The number that had made Sojin so proud was left behind as the old human continued his deadly dance through the simulation. But the test was not over yet. The computer was making things harder, just like it was supposed to. Bigger enemies were coming. Stronger defenses were turning on. The real challenge was about to begin. And Taeho Kim, with his ancient laser pistol and his 40 years of real combat experience, was just getting started. The simulation room became much more dangerous. The computer had seen Taeho's score and decided to make things harder. The walls changed color to dark metal. Bigger enemies appeared with thicker armor and stronger weapons. Trap doors opened, in the floor, and poisonous gas started to fill some of the rooms. The cadets watched the screen with wide eyes. This was the hard part of the test that most of them had barely survived. Sojin had lost many points here because her plasma rifle, for all its power, could not solve every problem. Dongwu had been forced to retreat several times when his 4 weapons were not enough. But Taeho did not look worried. He stood in the middle of the chaos and looked around calmly. His old pistol was warm in his hand from all the shooting, but he did not seem to mind. The cooling vents on the weapon glowed brighter red, and steam came out of them. "His weapon is overheating," said Kieran. "Modern weapons do not have that problem." "Look at his ammunition," said Vex. "He only has 20 shots left." Commander Nalthok was leaning forward now, his reptilian eyes focused on the screen. In all his years of training cadets, he had never seen anyone fight like this old human. "He is not fighting the simulation," the commander said quietly. "He is fighting like he is in a real battle." A new wave of enemies came at Taeho. These were not the simple robots from before. They were war machines, big, fast, and covered in armor that could stop most weapons. They moved in a group, covering each other and trying to surround the old human. The cadets had all used the same strategy against these enemies: overwhelming firepower. They had shot constantly, hoping their advanced weapons could break through the armor eventually. It had worked, but it had taken a long time and used a lot of energy. Taeho did something different. Instead of shooting at the armored enemies, he shot at the floor under their feet. His laser beam cut through the metal floor like it was paper. The heavy war machines fell through the hole he had made, crashing into the room below. "Brilliant," whispered Commander Nalthok. But the test was not finished. More enemies came, and these ones could fly. They zipped around the room like angry insects, shooting at Taeho from all directions. The cadets had struggled with these because the flying enemies were small and fast. Taeho watched them for a moment, studying their pattern. Then he did something that made all the cadets gasp. Instead of trying to hit the fast-moving targets, he shot at the air vents in the walls. The room's air system had been pushing the flying enemies around, making them faster and harder to hit. When Taeho destroyed the fans, the enemies became slower and easier to target. With careful, precise shots, he picked them off one by one. Each shot counted. Each shot hit exactly where it needed to. His score climbed higher: 900, 920, 940. "This is impossible," said Sojin. Her crystal body had turned pale blue, which meant she was shocked. "He is beating all of us with that old weapon." Hiwan felt a strange feeling in her chest. Pride. For the first time since she had come to the academy, she felt proud to be human. This old Marine was showing everyone that humans did not need the best weapons to be the best fighters. The final challenge appeared on the screen. It was the hardest part of the test: a room full of energy barriers, automated guns, and a single target in the center that had to be destroyed. The target was protected by shields that could stop any weapon the cadets had tried. Sojin had barely scratched it. Dongwu had run out of ammunition trying to break through the defenses. The other cadets had done no better. Taeho entered the room and stopped. He looked at the defenses carefully, his old eyes taking in every detail. The automated guns tracked him, ready to fire. The energy barriers hummed with power. The target sat in the center like a jewel in a deadly crown. He had 15 shots left in his weapon. "He cannot possibly do it," said Kieran. "Look at all those defenses. Even our best weapons could barely get through." But Taeho was not looking at the defenses as obstacles. He was looking at them as tools. His first shot hit a control panel on the wall. The panel exploded in sparks, and suddenly half of the automated guns stopped working. His second shot hit another panel, and the energy barriers began to flicker. "He is not trying to fight through the defenses," said Commander Nalthok in amazement. "He is turning them off." The third shot hit a power cable. More guns stopped working. The fourth shot hit a computer terminal, and the remaining energy barriers turned off completely. Now there were only the last few automated guns between Taeho and the target, but these guns were the strongest ones with the heaviest armor. The cadets had all struggled with them. Taeho aimed his fifth shot very carefully. Instead of hitting the gun, he hit the ceiling above it. A heavy piece of metal fell down and crushed the gun. His sixth shot started a small fire in some electrical wires. The fire spread quickly, and the smoke confused the sensors of the remaining guns. They began shooting at shadows instead of at Taeho. With his seventh, eighth, and ninth shots, he destroyed the last three guns by hitting their weak spots, places the cadets had never even noticed. Now only the target remained, but it was still protected by a shield that had stopped every weapon the cadets had used. Taeho looked at his pistol. The display showed he had 6 shots left. The weapon was very hot now, almost too hot to hold. The cooling vents were glowing white hot, and the old metal was starting to smell like it was burning. He aimed at the target and fired. The laser beam hit the shield and bounced off, just like it had when the cadets tried. But Taeho had expected this. The beam bounced off the shield and hit a mirror on the wall. The mirror reflected the beam back at the shield from a different angle. Then something amazing happened. The beam hit the same spot on the shield again, but from the opposite direction. The shield, designed to stop weapons coming from one direction, could not handle being hit from 2 directions at the same time. The shield flickered and failed. Taeho's next shot went straight through and hit the target dead center. The simulation ended. The score appeared on the screen, 987 points. The room was completely quiet. The cadets stared at the number, unable to believe what they were seeing. Sojin's crystal body had gone completely clear, something that only happened when she was in total shock. Dongwoo's forearms hung at his sides like he had forgotten how to use them. Commander Nalthok's mouth was open, showing his sharp reptilian teeth. In 200 years of training soldiers, he had never seen anything like this. Taeho walked out of the simulation room. His old pistol was smoking from the heat, and he was breathing a little hard. But he looked calm, like what he had just done was nothing special. "How?" whispered Vex. "How did you do that with such an old weapon?" Taeho looked at his pistol and smiled. "This old girl has been with me for 40 years. She cannot do half the things your weapons can do. She overheats, she runs out of power, she has no computer to help me aim." He paused and looked at each cadet. "But she taught me something your weapons never will." "What?" asked Haiwan. "She taught me to think," said Taeho. "When you have a weapon that can do everything for you, you stop learning how to do things for yourself. When you have unlimited ammunition, you do not learn to make every shot count. When you have perfect targeting computers, you do not learn to see what you are really shooting at." He held up the old pistol. "This weapon made me learn the hard way, and the hard way is usually the best way." The cadets looked at their perfect, shiny weapons with new eyes. For the first time, they began to wonder if having the best technology was really the same as being the best fighter. The silence in the training hall stretched on like a held breath. The cadets stared at the score display showing 987 points, a number that seemed impossible just hours ago. Sojin's crystal body slowly returned to its normal color, but her confidence had not come back with it. Dongwoo flexed his forearms nervously, suddenly feeling clumsy instead of superior. Commander Nalthok was the first to speak. His voice was quiet and full of something the cadets had never heard from him before: respect. "Marine Kim, in my 200 years of training soldiers, I have never seen a performance like that." Taeho was checking his weapon, going through the same ritual he had probably done thousands of times. He opened the small panel on the side and looked at the numbers. He touched the cooling vents to see how hot they were. He checked the grip tape to make sure it was still secure. "Commander," said Taeho, "may I ask these cadets a question?" "Of course." Taeho looked at Sojin first. "Cadet Park, when you destroyed the combat robots in the first room, how did you decide which one to shoot first?" Sojin's crystal body flickered with confusion. "My targeting computer told me which one was the biggest threat. It calculated their armor, weapons, and position, then picked the best target." "I see. And if your targeting computer was broken?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Sojin opened her mouth, then closed it again. She had never thought about fighting without her computer. Taeho turned to Dongwoo. "Cadet Lee, when you faced the energy barriers, you fired all 4 weapons at the same barrier until it broke. Why did you not try to find another way around?" Dongwoo's 4 hands clenched into fists. "Because my weapons are strong enough to break through any barrier. The targeting system showed me the weak spots, and I concentrated fire there until it worked. And if your targeting system was wrong, or if the barrier was stronger than your weapons? Again, silence. The question was simple, but the cadets were realizing they did not know the answer. P1 raised her hand slowly. Master Tejo, are you saying our weapons make us weak? The old Marine smiled at her. The first warm smile the cadets had seen from him. Not weak, Cadet Choi, but dependent. Your weapons are amazing tools, but that is all they are, tools. When you let the tool do your thinking for you, you stop learning how to think for yourself. He walked over to the weapon racks where all the advanced guns were displayed. Each one was a masterpiece of technology, worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. These weapons can do things my old pistol never could, he said, running his finger along a plasma rifle. They can shoot farther, hit harder, and never run out of ammunition. But they all have one problem. What problem? Asked Kieran. They make war too easy. The cadets looked at each other with confused expressions. How could war being easy be a problem? Tejo saw their confusion and continued. When I was your age, weapons were simpler. If you wanted to hit a target, you had to learn how to aim. If you wanted to move quietly, you had to learn how to control your body. If you wanted to survive, you had to learn to think faster than your enemy. He picked up his old pistol again. This weapon never let me forget that I was in danger. Every shot counted because I did not have many. Every move mattered because the gun could not save me if I made a mistake. It forced me to become a complete warrior, not just someone who could pull a trigger. Commander Nalthok nodded slowly. The old ways, he said. Before computers and targeting systems and unlimited power sources. Exactly. In those days, the weapon did not make the warrior. The warrior made the weapon. Beck stepped forward, her bioelectric rifle still humming with power. But Master Tejo, surely having better weapons is good. We can fight stronger enemies and win battles that were impossible before. You can win battles, yes. But can you survive when your perfect weapon breaks? Can you fight when your targeting computer stops working? Can you think your way out of trouble when your smart systems fail? He looked at each cadet in turn. Today you all scored very well. Your weapons performed perfectly. But tell me, what did you learn about fighting? Sojin spoke first, her voice smaller than before. I learned that my plasma rifle can cut through most armor if I aim at the right spots. That is what your weapon learned, said Tejo. What did you learn? I do not understand. You learned to trust your targeting computer. But did you learn to see targets that the computer missed? Did you learn to use the environment as a weapon? Did you learn to think like an enemy so you could predict what they would do? Sojin's crystal body dimmed as she realized the answer was no. Tejo turned to Dongwu. You learned that 4 weapons are better than 1. But did you learn when not to shoot? Did you learn that sometimes the best weapon is patience? Dongwu's forearms drooped. He had never thought about not shooting. Your weapons are tools, Tejo continued. Very good tools. But you have become so good at using the tools that you have forgotten to develop yourselves. You can hit any target your computer shows you, but you cannot see targets it misses. You can break through any defense your scanner identifies, but you cannot find defenses it does not know about. Haiwan raised her hand again. So what should we do? Get rid of our advanced weapons and use old ones like yours? Tejo laughed, a real laugh this time, warm and friendly. No, Cadet Choi. Your weapons are much better than mine. They will make you stronger in battle. But first you need to become warriors who are worthy of such weapons. He pointed to his old pistol. This weapon has limits. It can overheat, run out of power, and break down. Those limits taught me discipline. They taught me to think before I acted. They taught me that every decision in battle matters. Commander Nalthok stepped forward. What are you suggesting, Marine Kim? I suggest that these cadets learn to fight without their advantages. Let them use simple weapons for a while. Let them face enemies without targeting computers and unlimited ammunition. Let them discover what they can do when they cannot rely on their technology to save them. The commander's reptilian features showed interest. A training program? A learning program. These cadets are already good at using their weapons, but they need to become good at being warriors first. Sojin's crystal body flashed red with anger. This is ridiculous. Why should we use inferior weapons when we have access to the best? Tejo looked at her calmly. Because, Cadet Park, the best weapon in the galaxy is useless in the hands of someone who does not know how to fight without it. He walked over to where she stood and looked at her plasma rifle. This weapon can think for you, aim for you, and shoot for you. But it cannot be brave for you. It cannot be clever for you. And it cannot save you when everything goes wrong and all you have left is yourself. The old Marine looked around the room at all the cadets. I scored 987 points today, not because my weapon was better than yours, but because 40 years of fighting with an imperfect weapon taught me to be better than the problems it caused me. He smiled at them again. Your weapons are perfect. The question is, are you? The cadets stood in silence, each one thinking about what the old human had said. Their perfect weapons suddenly felt different in their hands, heavier somehow, like they were carrying a burden instead of a tool. Commander Nalthok looked at Taeho with new respect. Marine Kim, would you consider staying at the academy? These cadets could learn much from you. Taeho checked his pistol one more time, then holstered it. Commander, I would be honored to teach them, but we will do things my way. What does that mean? The old Marine smiled, and for the first time it was not a gentle smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to make their lives very difficult in all the right ways. It means tomorrow, they all train with weapons like mine. The next morning, the training hall looked very different. Gone were the shiny advanced weapons that the cadets had grown to love. In their place sat rows of old, simple laser pistols just like Taeho's. Each weapon was worn and scratched from years of use. The cooling vents glowed dimly and the grips were wrapped with military tape. The cadets stood around the old weapons like they were looking at poisonous snakes. Sojin's crystal body had turned a worried yellow color. Dongwu kept flexing his forearms, clearly unhappy about having to use just one weapon instead of 4. These weapons are ancient, complained Vex. How are we supposed to learn anything with equipment that belongs in a museum? Taeho walked into the hall carrying a cup of coffee and looking completely relaxed. Good morning, cadets. I see you have met your new training partners. Master Taeho, said Kirin, his 6 eyes all focused on the old weapons. Surely you cannot be serious about this. We are training to be officers in the Galactic Fleet. We need to learn to use modern weapons, not these relics. Taeho set down his coffee and picked up one of the old pistols. Tell me, cadet, what makes a weapon modern? Well, advanced targeting systems, unlimited power sources, smart ammunition, self-repair functions. Kirin trailed off as he saw Taeho's expression. All things that think for you, said Taeho. All things that make decisions for you. All things that keep you from learning what you are truly capable of. Commander Nalthok entered the hall. The reptilian officer looked at the old weapons with interest. I must admit, Marine Kim, this is not how we usually train our cadets. Commander, with respect, your usual training methods produce excellent weapons operators. I am trying to produce warriors. Heewon stepped forward and picked up one of the old pistols. It felt heavy and clumsy in her hands after using advanced weapons for so long. Master Taeho, what exactly are you going to teach us? Everything your perfect weapons never let you learn, said Taeho. First lesson, conservation. Each of these weapons has exactly 60 shots before the battery dies. There is no reload, no recharge, no backup power source. When you run out, you are done, so Jin made a sound of disgust. 60 shots? My plasma rifle can fire continuously for hours. Exactly. And because you never had to worry about running out of ammunition, you never learned to make each shot count. You spray energy at targets until they die instead of thinking about how to kill them efficiently. Taeho picked up his own weapon and checked it with the same careful ritual the cadets had seen before. Second lesson, precision. These weapons have no targeting computer, no smart systems, no sensors to help you find enemies. If you want to hit something, you have to see it yourself, aim yourself, and shoot yourself. Dongwu looked at his forearms with frustration. But I am naturally better with multiple weapons. This is not fair to my advantages. Life is not fair, Cadet Lee. In real combat, you might lose 3 of those arms to enemy fire. What happens then? Do you give up because fighting is no longer fair to your advantages? The cadet had no answer for that. Taeho walked to the center of the room. Third lesson, thinking. These weapons will force you to think about every decision. Do you shoot now or wait for a better opportunity? Do you aim for the easy target or the important one? Do you use your limited ammunition to attack or to solve a puzzle? He looked at each cadet. Your advanced weapons made all these decisions for you. They chose targets, managed power, and solved problems automatically. You became very good at pulling triggers, but you forgot how to be soldiers. Commander Nalthok activated the simulation system. What kind of training exercise would you like to run, Marine Kim? The same one as yesterday, but with some changes. No targeting computers, no smart systems, no helpful displays. Just the cadets, their weapons, and their minds. The first cadet to volunteer was surprisingly Heewon. The young human woman took her old pistol and walked into the simulation room with determination. What happened next was both educational and painful to watch. Without her advanced weapons targeting system, Hyawan missed her first 5 shots completely. The old pistol kicked harder than she expected, and the sights were different from what she was used to. But slowly, she began to adapt. By the 10th shot, she was hitting targets. By the 20th, she was starting to think about her shots before taking them. When she finally ran out of ammunition at shot 60, she had only scored 340 points, less than half her previous score. She came out of the simulation looking frustrated, but thoughtful. "It is much harder without the computer helping," she admitted. "But what did you learn?" asked Taeho. "I learned that I was not as good a shot as I thought. The computer was doing most of the aiming for me." "Good, what else?" "I learned that I waste a lot of ammunition. When I knew I only had 60 shots, I started thinking about each one before I pulled the trigger." "Excellent. You are beginning to understand." One by one, the other cadets took their turns. Each one struggled with the old weapons. So Jin, who had been so confident with her plasma rifle, found that she could barely hit stationary targets without her targeting system. Dongwu, used to overwhelming enemies with firepower from 4 weapons, had to learn patience and precision with just 1. But as the hours passed, something interesting happened. The cadets began to improve, not just at shooting, but at thinking. They started to study the simulation rooms before entering them, looking for advantages they could use. They began to move more carefully, knowing that their limited ammunition meant they could not afford to waste shots on poor positions. Most importantly, they started to see the combat differently. Instead of just reacting to targets that appeared, they began to anticipate where enemies might come from. Instead of relying on their weapons to solve every problem, they started using their environment as a tool. By the end of the day, their scores were still lower than they had been with advanced weapons. But their fighting was smarter, more thoughtful, more creative. "I understand now," said Sojin as she carefully cleaned her old pistol. Her crystal body glowed with a soft blue light that meant she was thinking deeply. "The advanced weapons made us lazy." "Not lazy," corrected Taeho. "Dependent. There is a difference. You worked very hard to master your weapons, but you let the weapons master you instead of the other way around." Dongwu nodded with all 4 of his arms. "When I had unlimited ammunition, I never learned to choose my shots. When I had perfect targeting, I never learned to really see the battlefield." "And now?" asked Taeho. "Now I see that the weapon is just a tool. The real weapon is the person using it." Commander Nalthok approached the group. "Marine Kim, this has been most educational. But these cadets will eventually return to using their advanced weapons. How will this training help them then?" Taeho smiled and picked up his old pistol one more time. "Commander, imagine how deadly they will be when they combine the power of advanced weapons with the wisdom of simple ones. They will have targeting computers and smart systems, but they will also know how to fight without them. They will have unlimited ammunition, but they will also know the value of every shot." He looked at the cadets, who were all listening carefully. "You will go back to your advanced weapons soon, but you will use them differently now. You will see opportunities your computers miss. You will solve problems your smart systems cannot understand. You will be warriors who use tools instead of tools that use warriors." Haiwan raised her hand. "Master Taeho, will you stay and continue teaching us?" The old Marine looked at the young human woman, then at all the other cadets who were nodding eagerly. "I will stay as long as you are willing to learn. But remember, the most important lesson is not about weapons at all." "What is it?" asked Vex. "The most important lesson is that no matter how advanced your technology becomes, the mind behind it will always matter more. Weapons can make you powerful, but only you can make yourself wise." As the cadets left the training hall that evening, each one carried their old pistol with new respect. The weapons were still crude and limited compared to the advanced guns they usually used, but now they understood that those limitations were not weaknesses. They were teachers. So Jin stopped at the door and looked back at Taeho, who was checking his weapon one final time before putting it away. "Master, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Yesterday when you scored 987 points, could you have scored even higher with one of our advanced weapons?" Taeho smiled and holstered his pistol. "Probably. But that is not the point. The point is that I would still be the same warrior whether I carried this old pistol or the most advanced weapon in the galaxy. The weapon does not define the warrior. The warrior defines the weapon. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back at all the cadets. Tomorrow we will practice something even more difficult than shooting with limited ammunition. What? They asked, fighting without shooting at all. As Tejo left the hall, the cadets looked at each other with excitement and nervousness. They were beginning to understand that they had been learning to use weapons for years, but they had never learned to be warriors. That was about to change. The old human with his first-generation laser pistol had not just beaten their scores in a simulation. He had opened their eyes to what they could become if they stopped letting their tools think.